Johannita Eksteen, who's got a phenomenal story, a brand called Funky Ouma, which I think the name just says it all. And as the youngest of many grandchildren, 10 grandchildren, she's really taken her grandmother's legacy to the next level. And I remember many years ago, it's a whole different story in itself, threatening to shoot her children because she didn't want to do the sales and marketing. But the funny thing about Johannita is she's taken this business out of Wellington. Now, interesting, Denise was in Wellington. Wellington is not the mecca of the metro and really is competing at retail level, which you all know is not the easiest things to do, is very empowering around staff. It runs a very niche business out of a small community and is now even exporting. But she does that by being a very serious mother, and serious mother in the sense that she's very particular about time for the kids, and the business must fit around her family. So nobody better to share that journey and that story than Johannita today. So Johannita, thank you very much for joining us. I know that everybody's going to get great value out of your story and the process that you've gone through. So thank you for joining us, and looking forward to you and Funky Ouma being a world dominating spice company all over the world.
Hi, thank you so much. So my mother and I, it's my mother, she is the grandmother, but it's my mother. We started the business together about 8 years ago. And just to give you an idea, my daughter is 8 years old as well. So it was at a point where I got married, and then my mother didn't have an income. I was responsible for looking after her, and that's another long story. But she was a wonderful businesswoman, but she looked after my father. He passed away, and there wasn't any money available. So basically, my mother and I were on our own, and we went through very tough times when I was younger. And then as I grew up, I could look after myself, I could study, and I could work part-time, and eventually had a proper corporate job. And but my mother was still financially in a difficult position. So we decided that she's always made this wonderful salt and spice mix. And she was so great at it, and everybody wanted it. And I said to her, this is definitely a gap. You know, people want to use natural spices. They don't want to use junk on their food anymore. It's homemade. Let's brand it and bring it to the market. So we went to the first little farmers market in Malmesbury, and it sold. We made 40 units, and it sold out. And we went to the next market, 40 units, and it sold out. And we definitely saw that there was potential, and I decided that I'm going to stick with her and let's try to get this brand going. But it was literally in the kitchen. I had a little mixing bowl, a little copy, taking the herbs, mixing it, drying the lemon zest in the sun. We were playing around, but it was something that came naturally for us. So that's actually something I want to bring in this conversation is you have to do something that comes naturally to you. You know, it has to be something that you enjoy doing. That's part of your natural gift that you receive, but also something you have a passion for. Marrying those two. Anyway, so then we made a joke and we said, listen, you're funky, you're a Ouma, let's call it Funky Ouma. And we laughed about it and said, okay, let's brand it. And it did so well. And the first 2 years was playing around because I was pregnant while we were at markets and expos. It wasn't easy, definitely not. You know, very last expo I was 38 weeks pregnant, 400 kilometers away from home. And, you know, you're trying to smoke salt and spices, and I think people bought from me because they felt sorry for me seeing this big boob. So yeah, and then the second baby came. So all the I'm mentioning this just to say the reality behind it. It wasn't easy. I had one baby in a sling, the other one sleeping underneath the table, and I think they're proud of me seeing this, or myself and Omar seeing this happening in real life events. That was in the days when there was a lot of markets and expos. Now there's none. Everything is online, so we missed that as well. Okay, so then stores started seeing the products. They started buying Funky Ouma, and eventually, a couple of years later, the brand became more of a niche market household brand. We've consciously decided, the subconscious, consciously, doelbewust, decided to focus on a niche market initially, due to the fact that our product was in a more now higher range, price range. And from the start, I knew that I wanted to operate in a certain price range. So we actually differentiated ourselves on our look and on our price. So we didn't want to be a 25 Rand salt on the shelf. We wanted to be the more trendy, funky, niche market salt and spice mix on shelves. And we took that image and pulled it through in all our strategies, focusing on our marketing, our pricing. Everything was in line with our market and where we wanted to position ourselves. So the one thing by struggling and by having fun, not financial freedom when I was younger, and that was part of my lessons learned in life. That made me tough. That made me streetwise. And I think that's also a lesson learned for everybody is the hard times shouldn't break you. The hard times should really gear you with the right mindset because building a business isn't easy. It is tough, especially if you have multiple duties, like being a mother, running up and down, homework, groceries. So you have to use the good times and the bad times with experience to be stronger, or to have the confidence in yourself to know that you can make it through every struggle. Oh yeah, sorry, I thought you were saying hard time to hear me. Hard time should gear you. Yes. Okay, where was I? Oh, so the one thing that I learned going through hard times was you have to make use of every opportunity. Tap into every single opportunity. And sometimes it's not easy. So I used a lot of the government grants and expos that they would have available on platforms. I would use that to get ourselves into a position to be part of an expo, or like CEDA, DTI, Westgrow. They actually have amazing platforms that want to help you reach your business goals. So we tapped into those, and sometimes it's a lengthy process to work through them because they've got a lot of paperwork. But if it wasn't for that, I would have maybe been 5 years behind or 3 years behind. But that just got us off that first period. Because Funky Ouma didn't start with much. We started with 4,000 Rand of products, and we grew that through the time. And yes, at first you don't take a salary, you put everything back into your business until you get to a point where you have to take a salary. Very important. Okay. So as we grew into a household brand, we got to a point we had to broaden our horizons. And we decided, because the niche market in South Africa is limited, it's only that big. So we decided to go abroad. So in Lindy, you would know very well, it was one of my goals. I think it was in 2017 or 2018. Lindy and I sat from ActionCOACH, and one of my goals was to export by end of 2020. Obviously, we went to an expo in 2019 in Dubai via Westgrow and DTI on a pavilion, national pavilion. We presented our product, and we actually won an award of the best design product of the show. And there are thousands of products. So I couldn't believe it. It was, yeah, amazing. Um, and we got there, and we were very well prepared, very well prepared. We had catalogs, we had QR codes, we did our research. What do you need to have at an expo? Because you can't just rock up there and then you go, oh shit, you're in Dubai. You know, you need to have your stuff there. And we saw a lot of people, so many people were interested in the product, but you need to connect with the right person. And that's the one thing that we have really, really also learned, is building meaningful connections, meaningful relationships with people. Making sure that if you meet somebody, that you immediately, doesn't have to take long, connect with them, because you never know when your roads need to your paths will cross again. So we met one of the retailers, saw our product and they loved it, and they connected their distributor with us. Then the distributor connected, and we started talking about pricing, and they placed our first order with us in February 2020. And then a week later, the word started coming in, COVID, 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 COVID. And basically the entire deal just froze. But we've already started packing this order, so we've already gone through the expenses. But that really learned us again to adapt, being adaptable the whole time. So we didn't go into panic. We just kept on communicating, making sure our markets are still open. And thank God, eventually the order did go through. Our very first export order also got hijacked in Durban. So, but we had insurance for that. So just when you start exporting, just make sure that you know what you're getting yourself into, because it's a bigger investment. Luckily, we had the knowledge and people teaching us that, you need to be insured. Obviously, but I mean, you wouldn't think for being hijacked, of your pallet being hijacked at the harbor. So then we achieved our goal. The products arrived in Dubai in mid-2020, and through COVID, it actually sold very well. And we've been supplying them on a every 2-month base. And then Germany started showing interest, Finland, Sweden. So when we just took that first big step, and that's another lesson learned, I'm thinking now, is just believing in yourself, taking that first step and nailing that first step. We didn't start with 10 countries. We focused on one customer, making sure we're nailing it, making sure we're understanding 100% how the pricing works, how the export works, familiarizing ourselves with every angle, not to make expensive errors. And through this, with the COVID and the stress and the exporting, our team grew. In a time where people were retrenching, we were blessed to actually grow our business because we needed to push bigger volumes. And that's another valuable thing, or something that really hit me, was my relationship with our staff. The relationship with my staff with each other, because Funky Ouma became a safe space for everybody. You would go home and you would have your troubles. Everybody's got different circumstances, and I know of most of my staff's heartache, debts, sorrow, financial troubles, relationship issues. You know of everything because we're part of a family. But when we arrive at work, there's such a harmonized feel. Honestly, there is really, really. We've got such great relationships. I think having that, understanding each other, knowing that this is a safe space, creates a good working environment. So everybody is putting in everything. And they also know that Funky Ouma is one of my babies. So I treat the business as family, totally. And my family loves Funky Ouma. So it's totally integrated. It has to be integrated. That's another lesson, is you are your business. You put everything into it. So you have to have boundaries as well. You pick up the kids, you go home, it's tough because the phone keeps on ringing, the WhatsApps keep on coming through. Customers don't give you a break after 2 when the kids are home. But you just have to manage it in your own way. I made a conscious decision of saying I don't really respond after 2. My time with the kids. It's a very luxury time to actually have to say 2 o'clock. But until 4, I spend time with them, and then another hour quickly attend to my emails, and then it's their time again. So it's a difficult balls to juggle. Yeah.
One thing that I'd like you to share, because I think it speaks to a comment you mentioned earlier on, that your hard times should gear you. You had a great product, and you had a really shitty I think what you should try to the grinder. Your grinders were terrible, and you were really struggling to find the right solution. And out of that came an absolute genius fix, but it wasn't quite exactly what you were looking for. So tell us that story.
Well, you see, we started packaging the salt and the spice mixes initially in grinders, and we still do a small portion of our lines. But the salt and the spice and the blends are in my hands. But I'm not a grinder supplier. I don't manufacture grinders. I sourced the best grinders from the best supplier locally, and I mean they supply Woolworths, so it's not as if I used a bad quality grinder. But the combination of the herbs and the salt and the grinder didn't work because we use fresh ingredients. And it would cause frustrations with customers. It would cause frustrations with me. I would be at home and I would go, what the hell? The thing's not working. And then I would phone the grinder supply and go, it's bad quality. And then, they would say, no, but look, we're supplying this and can't be. So it got to a point where I just decided, you know what? I've got a great product, but there's a glitch. I have to change it. And that's where we decided to reinvent the packaging. So we made the product finer, and then we sourced tins. Actually built a relationship with the lady, and we walked a long way to get to a point where we have a final product that's applicable to use for salt. And it made me think of bully beef. My brothers were in the army, so they used to bring bully beef home. So it had a sentimental feel to it. It just felt right. And then we placed it in the tins. So you just take off the spout, you lift it out, and then the salt comes out, and it's fine already. You don't have to grind it. And this became actually a very unique selling point for Funky Ouma, because Funky Ouma became a gift. It became something you would, instead of giving a bottle of wine or a box of chocolates, you would say, oh, let's give them a Funky Ouma, because it resonates with everybody, with the Ouma, and the packaging makes you think of the old days, the biscuits in the tins. And that's a very irriterende ding het 'n wen geraak. A very irritating thing in our business actually became a success.
And I think therein is a good lesson, because instead of finding a better grinder, manufacturing your own grinder, it was a left field idea that speaks more to the brand, the nostalgia around Funky. It's definitely a uniqueness in a USP. It affords you a premium pricing, and guess what? People use more of the product because now it just falls through the hole instead of a few little crumbs.
Exactly. You use double as much basically because the flow is much faster. It's like the story of the toothpaste. Make the hole bigger and you use more.
Exactly. Brilliant. So through COVID, you got into your international markets, reached your goal. Another goal you had was to buy premises. I know you did that. So how have you managed through the uncertainty to sustain the business and to still grow? What have you done to keep yourself sane, I suppose, in the process, but to keep focusing on your ultimate dream?
Adapt the whole time. Adapt. I mean, because that's how you keep sane, is you have to reset and pause and then reset. Okay, it's another lockdown. we have to be closed, or we have to have less staff, constantly working around it. It's just it's really just that. It's pausing, sitting down, and talking to your family, and having maybe a mentor or two. That's the one thing I also did. I would phone Lindy, and because on a friend base and on a business base, and say, listen, I'm stuck, and just talking to somebody makes you hear yourself. A klankbord in Afrikaans, we say. It's being quiet, pausing a bit, and thinking through the situation, because the situation is currently, it's always changing, especially now. I mean, I just think of malls. Malls is quiet. That used to be the hub. Now people want to be outside. So that's, for instance, where we brought out a travel size tin. We know people love camping now, and hiking, having picnic with family, spending time outside, home cooking. So work with the situation, and take what you have and blend them.
Absolutely. And as some of the comments are saying there, it is a great gift. Instead of giving flowers, take spices, and you can use all sorts of examples how to do that. So you're a plaasmeisie, klein dorpie, but you set the goal to go global. What was within you to step out of what is sometimes, I'm not saying it was you, but it's sometimes the perception, klein dorpie syndrome, woe is me, to play at that global level? What made you put that down as a goal?
Well, ek is 'n trendy vrou, so I know what's happening out there. No, it's keeping your eye. I hope everybody does it. Keep your eye on the bigger picture. It's very important to, maybe it's mindset. I think it can be mindset. My mother taught me to believe in myself and think bigger. And I know it's an easy phrase to use, but it's true. Just by watching Pinterest and watching Instagram and Facebook, you see what's happening around you. If you look at the real side of it, not the pretend side of it, you have to filter it for yourself. But you see what's happening abroad, and then you realize, for instance, when we went to Gulf Food in Dubai, there wasn't anything like ours. And I then just realized, flip it, pat on the back, we actually have something going here. We've actually, because South Africa's got great products, great entrepreneurs, great brands, great services. We are hard-working, hard-grinding citizens, because we live in Africa. So I think that forces you to be hungry to see what's outside. So it was aligning our values with I realized that, flip it, the market is limited in South Africa. We have to go a bit further.
Absolutely. And I love the comment here by Marie Louise saying that you need to collaborate with Denise from Dimmersfontein and package the wine with the spices. How's that for a good gift and for use? So yeah, opportunities everywhere. And I think that your answer is a good one, because we're always looking at saying, well, what is best outside to bring into South Africa, which is a finite market, but the mindset to say, no, what's good here that we can take out, I think is a great one. So you mentioned you 2 o'clock you switch off, you're there for the kids 2 to 4, an hour again back on work. It's not easy. You mentioned that you started the business when you were pregnant with your daughter. So how difficult maybe is it for you to keep that structure, to keep that discipline, to make sure that you're a good mother and look after the business?
Ugh. Very difficult. It's very difficult. That's the toughest part of it all. I actually don't have an answer, because every time I think I've got it, then I realize I actually don't, and then I just start again. But small things. I try to. I think the thing is the right staff, the right team, because finally, and it didn't happen overnight. It didn't really, so don't think it will. I really employed the right people. So I used to handle sales and finance and design and marketing, local export, and it just became too much. And I just did that little sum that you do. What if I employ somebody and I pay them an X amount? What will that cost me really? Will there be a return on that investment? And every time, my first person I had to employ, I couldn't believe it. It was like in the admin department. I was like, no way. How can I afford to pay somebody X amount for half day's work? Now, I mean, I love employing people now because I'm seeing that little secret of pay. Let's say you pay somebody 15,000 rand, for instance. It literally, they pay their salary within 3-4 days of work, and their salary is paid because they are saving so much time. I can actually focus on exports. So I think the team is so amazing now that it actually frees me up. I can forward an email, forward a message to make sure that the customers are reaching sales and not me. And that's freeing me up if I really look at it. And I've recently employed a personal assistant. I'm mind blown that I've done that because it's been a lifelong dream for me. And I've always been afraid because I thought I didn't deserve it in a way, that would make me, it just sounds too fancy or whatever. And it made such a difference in my life because now she can do certain things for me that frees me up spending time with my kids and instead of having maybe a pair, I am there for them, and I've got somebody helping me on the other side of life. Not that I say having a pair is amazing if you have one or want to have one. In my instance, if I need to force myself to spend time with my children, otherwise I love working. Otherwise, I'll be working constantly. So I hope that the team is the secret.
That's perfect. No, and I think you rightly said it's not easy, it's not perfect. One has to try, you make mistakes, you keep at it, but the team help you get there. And I think it's really being clear around what you want and then making it work. And you can only do that with the help and support of other people. So Johannita, thank you very much for sharing your story. It is truly an inspirational story, and really from Wellington to the world in a very corporate dominated field. To get that accolade of the best brand on that show, for those of you that don't know, that's a massive food show. And probably one of the proudest moments I've ever had was knowing your story. A friend of mine in Dubai that has been living there for a long time, didn't know the Funky brand at all, and picked it up and sent a photo and said, look what I'm buying with, found this great new product in Dubai shelves, happy to support South African and glad that they're there. And I thought, wow. From grinder problems, from all the irritations, COVID, and here he is buying with the African rub in Dubai. It's truly brilliant, and I know the sky's the limit for you. So thanks for sharing today.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Good. Thanks, Johannita.